Good to see everybody made it back from Chicago. I was very proud of our team, the way we responded, and to have a 3-game road stretch like that coming off of a Sunday night, our last home game being Sunday night, and then into that stretch. So proud of our team, to win 5 in a row, lose 2 games in a matter of 5 days, and then come back and win 4 in a row. I think it speaks to the guys in our locker room and kind of where we're at, but we've got to continue to improve. A lot of things we can improve on from yesterday, and I think the Arizona Cardinals are a really good football team, and we're going to have to play well. Fortunate to be back at home for the next 3, and can't wait to get to play back in front of our fans. Really don't have a lot of injury updates at this time. Ivan Pace, Cam Robinson, and Jay Ward are kind of all in evaluation mode right now. Don't have any updates on timetables or availability for this week quite yet, but I will keep you guys posted, and I'm sure Dr. Phillips will have some things to say as well.
With Cam Robinson, is that the same foot injury that he was dealing with a couple weeks ago?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, same foot. I'm pretty confident that it's very similar, and he was able to work through it, so we'll see how he responds.
Kevin, when Justin makes everyone around him better, like yesterday, how does he handle it? He's not getting the ball, but he impacts that game so much.
Yeah, he's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. He's never met any of these coverages and plans for him that we've played against. Like the outcome of him not having a major impact on the game is really not a possibility in his mind. I know he was very excited for Jordan and TJ and obviously for us to be able to, get Aaron over that 100-yard threshold, and Sam to play really well. But ultimately, as many times as I tell him, hey, you had 60, 70 yards in penalties that they had to hold and grab and do all the things to try to limit your impact, even within their coverage plan. He still wants to have an impact, and it's my job to try to find ways to, create as many footballs on any given Sunday as I possibly can to get everybody touches. It's easier said than done sometimes, but I was, the way we moved it, and I think we were pretty explosive yesterday. But yeah, definitely something that I want to make sure he always feels like he's a major priority, because, anytime he steps on the field, I think he's the best player on the field.
Coach, just building off of that, I know you obviously talked about Jordan last night, but just after watching the film and everything, can you just talk about the impact that he made, and if there was anything that you hadn't noticed live about just his performance?
I would just say that I thought he could have a similar type of day if he was able to play 4 quarters in Tennessee, and probably would have got a couple significant looks in that second half. And kind of fast forwarding to this week, just the way he went about preparing, both mentally and then physically getting ready to roll. He just felt like he had that kind of look in his eye all week long, and I thought he impacted the game, in a lot of different ways. He clearly had the long catch, kind of playing through contact before the ball arrived there and still making the play, so we didn't have to rely on getting the call there. The first third down in the game, 3rd and 8, they're kind of pushing coverage over that way, and he's able to kind of get through some contact from the flat defender, physical play, and catch the curl route for a first down. And then the big play kind of starting out the second half, kind of similar look to a play we had where we turned it over against Indianapolis, and we'd kind of been waiting to pick our spots for the right time to maybe see if we could get that look for him, and just the way he kind of set that higher angle, and Sam trusting him and dropping that ball in there, and then the catch and run afterwards I thought was massively impressive, and other than the fact that he got caught. But yeah, his impact, Jordan knows exactly what he is in our offense, which is one of our major impact players, and TJ Hawkinson as well with some massive plays there to help us secure the victory.
Kevin, you mentioned the 3-game swing of winning the road games off the top, and I think you guys have one of the better road records in the league since you came here. What goes into, I guess, being a successful team consistently on the road?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be hard, especially, we really kind of controlled. Obviously the early turnover was very, it was catastrophic early in the game when you're trying to really start fast. You're trying to win the turnover battle, and you kind of, have two X's in that column pretty quickly of turning the ball over, not getting points off of a significant drive. Defense had gotten a stop. That formula was right in play for us to get off to that good start. And then we were able to kind of recapture the game a little bit. And the noise really wasn't a factor for the better part of the rest of the day until they score 11 points in a very short amount of time to tie it up. And then you're kind of in the hornet's nest at that point, dealing with being on the road in the NFC North, and you've just lost momentum completely. But the resolve and just the next play, kind of whether it was long yardage, get back on track, long yardage plays, a 3rd and long, our guys just kept playing, made plays. The execution was there. We were playing really without our starting left tackle for the game for the better part of it against a good defense. And I just thought guys stepped up across the board, and I think that's really what it is. We've tried to build a system that, although sometimes you're going to run into some circumstances that maybe the pre-snap execution or things aren't what you want when you throw noise and just a different environment into the mix, but we've tried to build a system that can travel and can play, whether it's a completion-based pass game with explosives that we're hunting via the marriage of the run and the pass, or running the football a little bit better this year. I thought our guys up front really answered the bell of really wanting to be about a little bit more about physicality, getting removal up front, handling the movement that has sometimes, been a little bit of a concern for us. I thought they did all those things, and Aaron and Cam didn't have a lot of ops, but had some nice touches as well.
When you talk about building a system that can travel from a passing perspective, what things you prioritize to make sure that can happen?
Yeah, I think you got to have the ability to get the ball out sometimes, throw, either completion base, quick game, rhythm, timing type plays. And I think the ability to use tempo is always a nice mix, especially you get a little later on in the game, depending on what the defensive personnel, whether it's a team that's got a real strong pass rush or strong coverages or a match program to Justin. Sometimes that added element of tempo allows us to alleviate some of that while still having a good chunk of our offense at our disposal. And then I think it's just a constant layer of getting drives going, getting some significant gains without going backwards. I still thought there were some times yesterday where, we could have been a little cleaner, even off of the long Jordan catch to start the second half. We have a little miscommunication and cut a guy free, trying to run a wide zone, and then we take a sack, and we're in the red zone and out of the red zone in a matter of 2 plays that just can't happen. So that's kind of where we got to get to from a standpoint of just 60 minutes of execution. But I thought, as a whole, against a defense that really hadn't given up a ton this year from a yardage standpoint, they were really good on 3rd down, really good in the red zone, and we were able to do enough to win the game against a good defense.
And on the flip side, what are your priorities going into 3-game homestand as far as what you're looking for?
Yeah, I just think, we're getting, Thanksgiving this week, and we're getting into December, and it's been a goal of mine to continue. We've been winning. We've been able to overcome the 2-game setback in that 5-day stretch. But I just want to continue to improve. I want to continue to improve. What does our attention to detail look like? Can we overcome whatever things come our way from a standpoint of injury, adversity, or whatever it may be that all teams go through down the stretch of every NFL season? I want our organization, I want our football team, I want everybody to be pushing forward, trying to continue to chase improvement and progression all the way through the end of our season. And that just looks like another good week of preparation, a lot of boring stuff. Preparation, having good game plans, and having players that when they hit the field, they're going to be jacked to be back in front of our fans at US Bank. We know it'll be an unbelievable atmosphere, and we got to give them something to be excited about with our execution and our detail of how we go about the week.
Kevin, on
Over
the
the weekend, there was a report that the Vikings were one of the likely possibilities for Daniel Jones. I'm not sure how much you can get into him in particular at this point, but just more broadly, is there any inclination to look far ahead at that position, or in the short term for depth at this point in the season?
Yeah, I'm not going to really get into that today, but I will say tons of respect for Daniel Jones as a player and a person. Got to know him through the draft process years ago, and I'm sure now that he's a free agent, and there's probably a ton of league-wide interest in him. Daniel's going to make the decision that's best for him and his career moving forward, and I'm sure he's working through that process right now, but I really can't get into too much about, any short-term or long-term. I can just say I've, been a fan of Daniel's for a long time and hope, wherever his next stop takes him, it's a good opportunity for him.
And on
You
the
can say
third,
whether, is there's interest or not, or?
I'm really not going to get into that at this time.
Kevin, you mentioned Justin's support for teammates like Jordan and TJ. How much awareness or selflessness does it take for him to be that way in a game where he's only catching 2 passes?
Yeah, I think it's the maturity of a guy that, it all comes from a place where he just wants to win. And he knows, whether it's having a 14-point lead in the second half or, when he made maybe the most critical play all day was, his catch in overtime to get, to move the chains and kind of take a chunk of yardage there. And it was clearly they were matching him. They hadn't really matched a lot of guys throughout Coach Eberflus's tenure there, and a lot of coverage plans to him, a lot of opportunities for other guys to make some plays, and they did. But at the same time, I love the way Justin handles himself. I love the way he prides himself on his leadership and being a captain, and it's about going 1-0 yesterday in Chicago. But I do feel a responsibility to always let him feel that he's impacting the game. And it's easy for me to say, hey, you drew some penalties and you made a couple big catches. But, the actual reality of making plays and the energy and the igniter that he is for our whole team is still a very important thing for sure, Alec.
13, where Aaron Jones has the 14-yard catch.
Yeah.
Is that another example of Justin affecting a coverage? Because it looked like the linebacker, there's nobody going across the middle with him, and the linebacker seems to be going toward Justin. Is that a blown
Yeah.
assignment, do you think?
Well, no, I think they're aware of where he is as the, he's not really the single receiver because Aaron's on the same side as him, but they're aware of the type of things he does from that spot. If he was open, we were going to throw him the ball, and if he did take coverage, we had a pretty simple kind of long handoff type throw that we could get some blockers out in front of Aaron and let him get the first down. So I think it was kind of a game where it felt like the ebbs and flows. Like we had some success on those 3rd and longs. I thought Nick, for the second time this year, there is other eligibles available to him than Aaron Jones, but I thought just the comfort of having a guy that can just go in there now 2 separate times on 3rd down for his first play of the game. I mean, it's pretty rare, and you guys can tell by the plays that I call when he goes in. I'm not there's no ounce of, hey, let's just punt this thing away and move on. We're going to try to get the first down, and I didn't know at that time if Sam would come back in the game, so I was locking into the mentality we were going to go move the ball and get points, and Nick was going to take us down the field. So I thought it was great execution. I want to, you got to highlight those guys out in front, Trent, TJ, Jordan. It seemed like we had, it was just a great example of a tough spot, 3rd and 13, kind of critical time in the game. And those guys, they're not getting the ball. They're not catching their 100 yards that they both had. Trent comes in there and plays his role beautifully. The execution for something that we really just put in last week in the game week couldn't have been better. And then getting the ball to Aaron Jones in space is a big time plus. So thought it was a big moment in the game.
Naylor's touchdown. I mean, looks like there's a 3rd guy. I mean, Johnson is sort of leaning toward Jefferson.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's working, and I know you want to get him involved, but if that's working, how do you balance hey, Justin, this is working, and if it happens again next week, I mean, how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's where you wish you had 100 plays in every game, and we were just holding up boards on the sideline going as fast as we could because I would take a few extra snaps to be able to have a few more footballs to spread around. But I'm glad you mentioned that Jalen Naylor touchdown because, that's everybody's seen us in the red zone and how we like to get Justin involved down there, and the way it plays out with basically a 2-deep look, even down there that tight, a half-field safety look down there where he's able to, occupy space in the back of the end zone that forces a cloud corner in Jalen Johnson to have to kind of play both. And Sam, I thought it was a pretty high-level football play for how quickly we call it a low-high-low type of read for him to do it in the rhythm he did and give Speedy the maximum amount of chances to turn and get that ball in there. Didn't love the reach for the pylon. Life flashed before my eyes there a little bit, but just the competitive nature. And then you turn on the tape, and who's the most excited about it? Justin, when he sees that that Speedy scored. So definitely not something that I can allow to be an every week thing. But at the same time, I think there's the way Sam's playing and making great decisions with the ball. We were explosive, yet there wasn't a ton of plays where you felt like we were susceptible to turning the football over. And that means he's going to the right spots. And there were still some competitive plays in there for sure, especially trying to get the ball to Justin. And would have loved to have, the OPI call that took his touchdown off the board. It was a good call. It was exactly what they called. But a little cleaner execution there. Maybe we get him in there and everybody's happy today. But we'll save that for this next week.
Kevin, you've talked a lot about how teams cover Justin unlike they cover anybody. Do you think that will continue if guys like Jordan, TJ, Aaron continue to pop off, or will it always be force other people to beat us?
Yeah, well, the other thing too is when, in a lot of ways, when you're doing those things, you're not pressuring either. You're sending 4, and the coverage plan is clearly there's an identity to rush and coverage being married together, but still you're sending 4, and you're playing with 7 or sometimes 8 in the back end. And when you've allowed Sam to get in a rhythm and feel protected, or even when we've had 4-man rush, give us a little push like Tennessee, Sam's been able to, create some things off schedule. He's been able to move off the spot and still attack the defense. So I know, I kind of always, that's the way I self-scout. I kind of watch everything through the lens of what are they watching? What are they thinking? How are they seeing it? We're going to play that team again in a few weeks, and we've got to be ready for them to make some adjustments if they want to, or if they want to play the same game plan. We've got to be ready to still execute and get the same level of production.
What did you see from the Grenard sack in overtime, and how big was that in swaying momentum back to you after it?
Yeah, that was, just a perfect clip of play style being effort, strain, finish, regardless. He was double teamed on the play. He's working like crazy. And, they were trying to maybe get the ball down the field a little bit there. And he just kept straining, kept playing. Every moment, every blade of grass, everything mattered. And then to get him on the ground, you guys saw how hard, even when we had some guys that had some free runs at him, he's still a very difficult player to get on the ground and not allow him to eventually, create something by attacking outside the pocket. So I thought it was a massive, massive play, and he had a phenomenal game yesterday. He really did.
How do you evaluate Reisner at his new position through 2?
Yeah, I thought, he was absolutely part of the, kind of the play style that I saw out of that interior in this game. I thought, from Tennessee to yesterday, which is to be expected with a player of Dalton's caliber, there was some improvement there for sure, and just some more comfort. The guy didn't get any preseason time. We've been ramping him up until we decided to make the move, and, I thought he did a lot of good things against Tennessee and then improved on that. So excited about where Dalton is, and I think you're feeling kind of that veteran presence in there with Garrett, Blake, B.O., and then, how about Quest stepping in for Cam and, allowing us to have over 450 yards of offense is a pretty special day for those guys up front. Consistency is the truest measure of performance. I'm going to challenge those guys. I want to see the same thing each and every week, and it's going to be a huge part of our team's ability to have success. Thank you.
Thank you.